Good morning and welcome to our first ever virtual leadership summit. We are so excited to have you here. My name is Evan Cleveland. I'm the director of programs here at Prospanica, and I am joined by Thomas Savino, CEO.
Good morning. Of course, we'd love to come together as we do every year and meet face to face and have those great sessions we always have and to have our great hallway conversations. But everyone's aware of the global situation that we do have. I want to promise you that the mission is not something that's being put on hold. To empower and enable Hispanics, social, educational, and economic will continue to happen. And that's why we have pivoted so quickly with partners that we are thankful for, like Dr. Munoz, who's actually here in the office today, who will do her session that she was going to do here in Dallas or Irving in person. And we have Dave Morelli later, who will be virtual. So we're thankful to our partners, including the University of Dallas, 3M, and American Family Insurance, who have all joined us to help us pivot right away and who recognize the importance of our mission, which we will continue to deliver despite the global pandemic. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. We're very excited to be here today. So before we get started, I want to jump through a few items. First of all, you'll notice Thomas and I are wearing our brand new Prospanica gear. So the shirt you can get now is Generación Líder. Now this shirt is not quite yet available. It will be very soon, but you can see, of course, you can still have the Latina leader, the Latino, Latinx. These are all available, proforma.com/Prospanica-gear.
We'll send out an email about how will they know when it's available.
Yes, we'll let you all know. We'll announce it because we want you to go ahead and get the new shirt. Don't stop wearing the old shirt. The old shirts also are still for sale. And an important thing to notice is proceeds from this, they benefit our foundation. So next announcement, coming up Monday, our scholarship program will open. It's prospanica.org/scholarships. A few things are different this year. It's going to be open for a much shorter window, so from March 16th until April 20th. We have trimmed the application down, so it's a simpler application, a simpler process. People will be invited to a second round, so you want to go ahead, get ready, jump in on March 16th so that you aren't late. The scholarship, of course, we are going to offer a discount. So if you're not yet a student member, you can join at a discounted rate. There is a code. It's on the website. You can see it there, prospanica.org/scholarships. It will go active starting on March 16th. Something else we're very excited about, the Prospanica Board Leadership Program. This is our second group. You'll hear later today from David Morelli, who is one of the lead designers of this program. We are accepting applications. This, like I said, it's the second round of this program. This is designed to help professionals become better leaders, better professionals, and better corporate or nonprofit board members. We've had a lot of great success with this program. You can apply prospanica.org/board leadership. We accept these applications on a rolling basis. We have applications coming in. We have made acceptances, so you want to get yours in before we close it.
Absolutely.
Let's see what we have next. We have more we want to tell you about. So you're going to join us again virtually next week on Thursday, March 19th, Facebook Live. So step 1, follow our Facebook page. Step 2, join us at 2 p.m. Central. We have more news, more information, more announcements we want you to be aware of. Some stuff we would have announced this weekend had you all been here with us. But instead, we'll do it live via Facebook. We're going to take the summit. We're going to stretch it out just a little bit longer than it would have been. You're going to miss the amazing meals the team had gotten set up for you, but that's okay. You can still enjoy all of the excitement of us being together in a virtual space. This is something incredibly exciting we've not done before. We're going to have a virtual career fair. April 28th, from 12 to 3, that's Eastern time. You can see the website there. I'm just going to go ahead and read it out. It's a bit.ly, so it's bit.ly/pro-career-fair. This is something that we've not stepped into this space before, and we are thrilled that we're able to do it, and now the timing is perfect. So check this out. If you're looking to start a new job, if you want to connect with employers, the virtual career fair is going to be an exciting place to be. Now, with this being said, go ahead and just let you guys know we have every expectation that we will be in Las Vegas in October for our annual Conference and Career Expo. However, there is no reason to wait until October to jump on a career fair. So check it out. You can go there and register today.
Number two things. If you've not done a virtual career fair, go to this one to learn how to do it. It's nothing unusual. You're familiar with all the tools that are there. It's also a good way to network because you'll be chatting with corporate folk or the corporate sponsors who are looking. So it's a great learning experience. Don't go when you need to, go when you can so you can learn about it. And Evan's absolutely right. While we would be monitoring the situation all year, we've just had 3 major corporations sign up for our Conference and Career Expo in October in Las Vegas. So we are marching hard to that. And so I hope you all continue to look forward to it and plan for it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like Thomas said, corporations are signing up. And some great corporations that we're excited about. We'll be announcing all of that soon. But one thing at a time, Virtual Career Fair coming up first. We are obviously not together. However, there's no reason for that social media conversation not to exist. If you hear some amazing points today, which I know you will, if you have something you want to share based on what you're hearing, tweet it out, post on LinkedIn, use the hashtag Prospanica Summit. Even though we are doing it virtually, the summit is live. It's happening now. And if you're watching this recording later, it doesn't mean the conversation has to stop because we aren't talking to you live. Keep communicating, keep sharing. We want the amazing ideas, the amazing concepts that you're hearing today to be broadcast out there to all of our friends, all of our connections on social media. Thomas already mentioned this. We want to give a big thank you to our sponsors, 3M, American Family Insurance. These are corporations that value the programming we deliver, and they want to make sure that we can bring it to as many people as possible. So even though we aren't in person, we're pivoting to this virtual experience, and we thank them for supporting us and enabling us to do that. And so we've gotten to the point now, announcements are done. Without further ado, we'd like to bring on Dr. Laura Munoz.
Okay.
And she's going to take Thomas's chair. Laura, come and say hello. Thank you, Thomas. And so just a little bit about her. Thomas mentioned, of course, our partnership with the University of Dallas. We do have an amazing partnership with this university, and Dr. Munoz is a professor there. And one thing you can do, if you're a member at Prospanica, you do receive a tuition discount for the University of Dallas. So you want to check that out. You can find it on our member benefits page on the prospanica.org. You can learn more about that. But the University of Dallas has been an amazing partner beyond just that tuition benefit. There's a few years ago, and then, of course, this year, the sessions you're attending are going to result in a certificate of leadership communication that once you've attended this webinar, watch the entire thing, watch the next one we're having later today, watch the entire thing. We will email you within about a week. We'll give you that certificate by email. You can share that with your employer. You can share that with other stakeholders to let them know the things that you are doing, the things that you are learning, the skills you're gaining. So we are very excited to have this. Now, some interesting things about Laura. She is a professor at the Gupta College of Business at the University of Dallas. She also was one of the founding members of a NSHMBA, formerly NSHMBA Prospanica chapter, and so she has had an interesting and long relationship with us for some time.
Yes, I have. Thank you, Evan.
Yes, thank you. So welcome to the Prospanica studio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. All right, so shall we get started?
Yes. So
okay.
What we're going to do is I'm going to step off and give the stage to Laura, and then we're going to shut the webcam down for a moment just so you can make sure you can focus on the content on the screen, and we will bring the webcam back up. Now, before we get started, a couple of items. You'll notice in the GoToWebinar taskbar, there is a link for handouts. So you will see there's a handout that Laura has prepared that you want to have handy. If you didn't get it by email, if you didn't download it after registering, it is available now. Also, there will be moments where we want to take questions. We want to take comments from you. We can do this one of two ways. You can type a question in the chat feature or the question feature, or you can also, there's an icon you can press, it's a little hand raised image. You click that, we'll know your hand is raised, and we actually have the ability to unmute you and to bring your voice into the webinar. So we do want your questions. And now, without further ado, we're going to drop the webcam. We're going to let Laura take over.
Thank you, Evan. Well, first off, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. and I certainly appreciate you logging in and listening to what we're about to share. So today's title is Using Your Voice, Exercising Your Agency in a Difficult World. So first, I want to introduce myself. Oops, the clicker is not working. Oopsie, just a second, please. So let me tell you who I am. So I am an associate professor of marketing with the Satish and Jasmine Gupta College of Business and in the University of Dallas. And the reason why I am qualified to do this webinar today is because I teach professional sales and negotiations as part of what I do. There we go. Thank you. So I like to think that, as my pop doll says there, she wishes she was Wonder Woman, but I'm certainly not. So one of the beauties and certainly passions of mine is that I teach people how to sell, professionally sell in a business-to-business environment. I teach negotiations. I teach people how to overcome objections. I teach people how to question to make sure we understand a needs assessment or a goals assessment. And so definitely, as I am teaching and coaching organizations or companies or my students at the University of Dallas, it is certainly about learning a new language. And this new language empowers us to have better communication skills, so the message we want to convey is actually heard. So just a little bit about me. As you can see, I do have a PhD in marketing from the University of Texas Pan American, now called University of Texas Rio Grande Valley in South Texas. I am a professional sales coach. I'm also a consultant and educational speaker. I've been to Harvard Law School for a negotiations seminar, and I've been to Harvard Business School for the case seminar, which I use in my classes at the University of Dallas. And then obviously I am also a wife, I'm a mother, and I love being, in addition to a mother, I am a dog mom of 2 adorable rescues. So anyway, so I was thinking, how was I going to start today, right? And if we go back to the title, it certainly is a difficult world today. So as I was thinking, how am I going to start my audience? How am I going to get your buy-in, right, with a story that captures your attention and captures your thoughts and feelings so you can relate? So I was going to use statistics, I was going to use the country's perceptions, and then something else happened, okay? What actually happened is, my clicker is not working again. So what actually happened was the Super Bowl, right? And if we were together right now, I will ask you, how many of you watched the Super Bowl, right? And I will ask you, well, raise your hand. And then I will ask you, well, how many of you actually just tune in to watch the halftime show, right? As we have J-Lo and Shakira right there. And I will expect some more hands there, right? And then just to make you smile today, how about that? The NFL will be playing a football game before and after J-Lo and Shakira's concert in February. I mean, I have to admit, I'm guilty of posting that even on my social media because I thought it was hilarious, right? I have to admit, yes, I love football, but I was definitely interested in seeing the performance of these 2, amazing singers. So one of the key things that I wanted to bring out, right, as part of this halftime show that allowed me to actually come up with, I think, a much better opening story for all of you, is that they made a big statement for immigrants and Latinos in the halftime show. Regardless whether we thought the show was family friendly or not, it certainly caused controversy, but that is not the point today. I want us to point out, to actually pay attention to all the cultural moments that they brought up. We have Shakira honoring her Lebanese roots. Yes, she's a Colombian woman, but she also honored her Lebanese roots, and she performed belly dancing on stage. Then you had 2 powerhouses, J-Lo and Shakira, working together, supporting women. Then you had that moment which showed the children in what is actually was supposed to represent cages. And that was actually a moment, a cultural moment that they used to point out how upset these 2 performers were about the fact that immigration separated families and children and put children in cages. That's what that actual moment meant to be. Then you have Shakira dancing and singing, and at some point she does her tongue twisting moment, the one where she made a noise, and again it was the tongue twisting, and Many people miss it. It certainly generated a lot of social media. But that actually is called the Sahruta. The Sahruta is a chant that women do in Lebanon to actually connotate or denote their emotion, their excitement, their happiness. So that was what Shakira was doing. And then last but not least, we have J-Lo and her daughter bringing us the hope of new generations, singing in America the song by Bruce Springsteen, but she also showed the Puerto Rican flag, showing to us how you have two powerhouses who stood up there and for many were a symbol of Latinos getting a seat at the table, women empowering women, and showing immigrants that we immigrants can do hard work, we have ethics, showmanship, commitment, quality, and creativity. All of these while honoring or spicing it up with your African and Lebanese, Puerto Rican, Spanish, and even people from the Bronx with that famous song, I'm Still Jenny from the Bronx, right? So I think this was a wonderful show to celebrate cultural differences. And again, regardless of where we are on that stance, whether we thought the show was family friendly or not, I want to make 2 points for you, and I hope you will agree with me. The first one is that Latinos came out strong to defend their stance. Their opinions, their sentiments, their beliefs were actually expressed. We used our freedom of speech, and supporters or people that were against it, they all voiced their opinion. They all voiced their concern. People tweeted, posted on Facebook, posted on Instagram. We went ahead and showed in our Instagrams, and there was no shyness. There was no apprehension. We expressed ourselves. We Latinos came out in support of our opinion, and that certainly makes me happy and hopeful that even though it is a difficult world, as the title of our seminar states, we are empowered to actually defend our stance, and we feel comfortable about it. The second point I want to make is that the cultural expressions did not take away from the show. I think they actually added to it. All of these cultural expressions, it's a reminder of how interconnected our world has become, how we actually rely on each other, how the world is actually living in a from a connectivity stance that what happens in one place, we feel it on the other side of the globe. But I wanted to put it today on a happy note, going beyond what's happening with this virus right now, that whether, we white people, blacks, Hispanics, Asians, we can work together and make it so that our work shines. And I think this is what I wanted truly to convey with you, that the cultural expressions, regardless of where we're from, did not take away from the show, they added to it. But without needless to say, it is a difficult world. So before I go on kind of building up on what can we do about it, I want to actually take a little time to tell you why it's a difficult world. And to do that, I'm going to use a study done by the Pew Research Center, as you can see there in the slide, which is a nonpartisan fact tank. That means they do not affiliate with any political party, and all they're trying to do is inform us about issues and attitudes and trends, that are shaping our world. So why is it a difficult world? Well, it seems that we in the U.S., we Latinos, seem to see the U.S. to be a green place where the overall situation is worse for us in the political, societal, and governmental senses. These have led to dissatisfaction, concerns, and worry among all of us. So let me show you a few numbers just to kind of paint the picture that we are seeing. So in the first one on the left, we see Hispanics say their situation in the U.S. has deteriorated in the past year. And it actually makes it as worse. That's why it says rivaling. We have rival views as bad as what we had during the Great Recession. So this is the percentage of Latinos who say the situation of Hispanics, Latinos in this country today is whether worse or about the same or better than a year ago. So as you can see, on the dark brown is our worst line. So in the Great Recession, it was about 50% of people who said the situation was worse. Nowadays, if we fast forward, it's worse. 47% see that our situation has worsened. About 36% say it's about the same, and only 15% will say the situation is better. Now, notice how this study was done back in 2009. However, they have kept continuing to updating it, and I will dare to say to a certain extent that perhaps even with today's situation, the views have not necessarily improved. On our right side, we see immigrant Latinos are more worried than the U.S.-born Latinos about their place in America, specifically deportation. And I think this is such an important point to pause and think. There are, if you wish, two types or two categories of Latinos or Latinos, right? Or Hispanics. There are those who are immigrants and may not have papers, they might be illegal, they may have a green card. So they certainly face situations such as anxiety, stress, that those of us who may have been born in this country or who have become citizens do not have. So I want to remind us how even though we are all Latinos and we may all share a heritage, we're not necessarily on the same boat. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about the percentage of people who say that they see their place, whether they are foreign-born or not, what's their place in America now that Trump is president. So on the left side, we have whether you feel confident, and on the right side, whether you have serious concerns. So if you are foreign-born, that means if you were born like I was in Mexico, or if you are from any other Latin American country, only 37% feel confident, and 57% have serious concerns. Concerns about deportation, concerns about your family being split, concerns about if I leave for work today, am I going to be able to come back? Or if I take a trip to go see my parents, am I going to be able to come back? As just last night, I believe it was announced we were not going to accept trips or flights from Europe. That does not apply to U.S. citizens, but it will apply in this case, for those who have a green card. So it's certainly worrisome. But if you are U.S. born, or also like myself, I became a U.S. citizen, so 55%, still a very low number though, it's hardly over half. We're confident that, I'm not so worried about my place, but 42%, we still have serious concerns. So that is certainly something to keep in mind. Then, if we were on the second half of that statistic, if we show the percentage who say, regardless of their own immigration or citizenship status, that they worry that they have a family member or a close friend who could be deported, if you're foreign-born, actually 67% worry a lot, or at least to some significant extent. And if you are U.S.-born, yes, 56% and not to worry at all so much, and 43% still show some. So that shows I believe, some very startling statistics that we have to remember that even though we support each other, there are some of us who perhaps because we are not born, we may only have a green card, it is still a difficult world, and we may have more concerns than somebody who does not. In addition to that, 4 in 10 Latinos experience an incident, heard expression of support tied to their background in the past year. So if we were to look at the percentage who say in the past 12 months, they have personally listened of something because of their Hispanic or Latino background, 38% experience at least one of the 4 incidents, okay? 38%, that is a very high number. 24% experience discrimination or unfair treatment. 22% being criticized for speaking Spanish in public. 20% being told to go back to your home country. And 16% being called offensive names. That is something that definitely, I believe, brings the point home that it is a difficult world. Refreshingly, 37% have heard an expression of support. However, I would like for this number to be higher. 38% is still too high of a number, and 37% is still too low of a number. I want us to not experience discrimination, whether you are white, Hispanic, Black, or Asian. We're all people, we're all humans. I don't want us to be critiqued for whatever language you decide to speak. I think the fact that some of us are bilingual speak to the capacity of our brain and how much we love that we live in a world where we're actually getting more interconnected, and many of us feel more like a citizen of the world. So I want to celebrate if you speak any other language. I encourage you to keep speaking it, and I encourage you to teach further generations or newer generations, younger ones, to keep doing so. But then not all is grim, and I wanted to also lift us up. The Latino population stands at nearly 59 million and is one of the youngest and fastest growing groups in the U.S. Also on the right, as you can see, we continue to see the U.S. as a better place to get ahead. 85% of us. Yes, we may not feel welcome in the United States sometimes, but we also see that the U.S. is a better place than, for example, unfortunately in my country, I live with the worry that my parents are still there, and there are drug wars, and there's people killing each other, and I certainly live with that worry every day. Yet I am happy that I'm raising my son here in the States, and I am raising him to be bilingual and to celebrate both heritages. The U.S. is a better place to raise children also, as I was just saying. 73% of us think that it's a better place than our countries of origin or Puerto Rico. And needless to say, overwhelmingly, we are proud of our heritage, 97% of us. And that doesn't mean that we reject the U.S. I think that shows the capacity of our hearts that we can love both places. We can love the U.S. and where we come from. They do not go against each other. And that's why I want you to find your voice. And to find your voice, I'm going to use a concept called personal agency that I'm going to help you hopefully develop further today and feel empowered to do it. So why don't we start with the top 5 or 10 stressors in your life? And I would love to hear from the audience. If you could please start chatting with us, and here in the studio, they're going to convey to me what you are saying. So let me give you about 2 minutes.
One person came through with the maybe obvious answer, the coronavirus.
Yes, definitely. I agree with you. That's in my mind as well. And thank you for logging in. So besides the corona, what else will stress you? What else would you say? Like if you have to walk out the door, some of us have our moms and dads. What would you say?
Here are some other ones. We have anti-Brown sentiment from all levels of the government and citizens.
Okay.
Career development.
Yes.
Balancing family and work.
Definitely.
Money.
Yes.
The growing cost of college.
Yes. Absolutely.
Balancing work and family life.
Yes.
How to balance work life with schools being closed while one has to work virtually from home.
Exactly.
Family relationships.
Yes.
Kids, work, traffic, health. COVID-19
in general. So pretty much we are living in a stress mode, right, guys? I 110% agree with you. Yes. So let me put it in perspective a little bit, and thank you so much for interacting with me. You're correct. We are being bombarded with all of these images, thoughts, and beliefs that put us in the middle. So if you follow me on that infographic that I'm showing, certainly the news about COVID-19 and then family relationships, and then on the right, that delicious hot dog that has my name all over it. But if I want to be healthy, I can't, right? Then the economy is going down. What's going to happen to my job? But you need to stay heart healthy. Don't forget about that. Then I have 10 million things to do because I'm going to use myself, okay? I'm going to speak in first persona here. I am a mom. I'm a mom to my dog. I am a college professor, so I also have to calm down my students. Yesterday was still teaching, and I used about 10 to 15 minutes of class time just to calm down my students and reassure them that I was not going to abandon them, that I was going to move everything online. Money, medicines, am I taking my drugs with COVID-19? They're supposed to get 2 months filled. Work, the weather, my brain. If you're smoking, please do try to quit. The phone, we live glued by our phones. How many of us are guilty of leaving the house, realizing you don't have your phone, and I cannot live my day without my phone. So you drive around and you go get it. How many of you are guilty of maybe sometimes drinking too much coffee, chocolate, sweets, alcohol, work, noise? If you think about it, all of those things are actually taking a toll on our body, on our mind, on our hearts. So it actually makes us feel that we're 110% of the time, we feel that we are on call. We feel on call all the time. But because we're also on call, we are disengaged with everything that could matter to us. We do not have perhaps healthy boundaries in terms of if I'm at home, I'm truly at home. If I'm at work, I'm truly at work. Then these two take a domino effect, and then I'm feeling overwhelmed. Nothing is going well. I cannot do anything right. Things are going wrong. How am I supposed to do all these things, keep my child healthy, keep up with my work, show up and do my grading, and then we feel stuck. And our stress level just goes through the roof. So I'm sure if I was to ask you to raise your hand, how many of you have felt this domino effect at least once in this year? I will say all of us have felt it, right? It's too much. And you're right, it can be too much. So what I want to propose to you today and really make you think about it and hopefully adopt it is that your sense of agency is what will help you. We have personal agency. So what is that? Because I have to admit, when I was raised in Mexico, my parents were first generation and to go to college. But they never talked to me about these psychological terms. Or they never talked to me about what I could do. They were doing the best that they could to raise me and to give me choices, and hopefully choices that perhaps they didn't have. So personal agency is the concept that helps you to actually make you feel that you're not being pulled in 20 million directions. So this, what it does, your sense of agency, is the ability to cut through all of what pulls you so you can find emotional and physical balance, so we can think more clearly, and you can actually, which I think is very interesting, advocate for yourself. So again, if I have a sense of agency and I put a healthy boundary between all the noise of the world, between all the things that are happening, and I can cut through from them, right? I can actually separate myself from everything that is pulling at me. I can achieve balance. I can think better, and I can actually make decisions that do not make me feel disengaged or pulled in 20 million directions. So your sense of agency will help you find a path that makes sense. Why? Because the beauty of agency is that it makes you regain your control. It reduces your anxiety, it reduces your stress, and it makes you feel that I'm in control. I am not reacting, I am being proactive, because I have not lost my sense of agency, and it's called personal agency. And this is a concept that it has certainly grown on me in my adulthood, that as I became a college professor and I earned my PhD, I read more about it because I used it to teach in sales. Especially people think that it's true, some people are born with a gift to sell, but sales, professional sales and negotiations, it's a skill, it's an ability. And if you let me teach you, I will teach you as your professor. So I certainly empower the sense of agency in all of my students. So, yes.
We have one question.
Yes.
Someone was asking about why the word agency. If you could maybe explain where that word comes from and why we use it in this context.
Yes. The word agency comes because it actually puts you that you are in control. You're an agent of your life. You're your own agent. So you are the one in charge of acting on behalf of your mind and on behalf of your thoughts and on behalf of your emotions and your feelings. So you are the agency. You are the person who protects your brain and your heart. And please let me know if you need any further explanations. I would love to. If we were live, I will ask you, did that answer your question? Unfortunately, I can't, but please continue to text us, and I will be happy to address those questions. So yeah, agency is because you're an agent in charge of your life, in charge of your decisions. So what I want to do now, everyone, is you have in your handout a personal assessment. I want you to go ahead and individually answer each question as to how you behave in your life, both professional and personal. When in doubt, then answer mostly to the agency that you're more interested in learning, whether it's personal or professional. And do not look at the answers yet. You have the answer at the bottom of the second page, but I want you to please first do this. So we're going to give you about 10 minutes. Please go ahead.
So everyone who's working through the workbook, we have about 4 minutes left, so take your time, plow through it, don't look at the answers yet. We'll be back in 4 minutes.
Well, hi everyone. Here is Laura Munoz again from the University of Dallas, and I hope you were able to finish your assessment. And if not, we can work at it together. So right now we're going to start reviewing each section, and I'm going to tell what each section means. We're going to talk about it, and at the same time, as I start to explain things, please go ahead and give me your questions, put your questions on the chat, so I can address them as we go. I want to make sure we make it as interactive as possible so you can learn the most. So here we go. All right, guys. So how many of you said yes to this one, right? Or maybe very strong maybe, because sometimes we don't want to admit, right? I have a sense that you know where I'm going. So visible to you, meaning the screen is always off? Do you have sound and or pop-up notifications for texts? Do you practice daily off-screen time from phone and tablets? And do you consistently eat in loud places? So if you said yes to questions 1, 2, and 4, we're actually talking that you may need to control your stimuli. The problem with stimuli is that it actually interrupts what we're doing. It interrupts our mind. So that means that your environment, whether it's phone interruptions, whether it's people talking to you, whether it's in a loud place, that means that they're constantly hijacking your mind. Your mind is being pulled into all these directions because all of these different stimuli. So what I want you to do to regain a sense of agency is to actually control where your mind is being hijacked from. So I will want to encourage you to actually put your phone, I'm not going to tell you away, but how about putting the screen down when you're actually working? I also see this as a matter of respect because I take personally, for example, I am serving the University of Dallas. They pay me to be a college professor. So when I'm writing research, when I'm on my desk, I put my screen down. If it's important, they will call me. So for example, my biggest worry is my kid. And I've come to the conclusion that if something happens to him, that's my personal agency speaking. He is in a school where I trust they will call 911 and they will call an ambulance. And I also trust that if something happens, they will call me. So I can put the screen down and give 100% to what I'm doing in that moment. The positive side of it, when you start controlling your stimuli, you start gaining your sense of balance, you can think better, you actually are not pulled away. So I also want to encourage you to achieve a healthier lifestyle, to practice daily off-screen time from phone and tablets. So what I do, for example, I have an iPhone and I set the timer for bedtime. So after 9:20, my phone goes off. I do not get texts. I do not get emails. I do not do anything. I also put my phone away. When I'm with my son, when I'm at home, even if it's just for an hour or two, I make sure I put it away and I focus on being with my son. When I'm at work, if I'm teaching, I focus on being a professor. If I'm teaching people sales, I focus on doing that, okay? So again, this is why we tend to feel that we have no control, that we have a lot of anxiety, that we're losing our sense of agency. We need to control our stimuli. So this is your first block to start building your sense of agency, okay? We're going to control our stimuli. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Don't forget, if you have questions, please text them, okay? I'll be more than happy to address them. So let's move to the next step. All right. So do you tend to reply or participate in Facebook, Twitter, etc., in conflictive chats? You know, I'm against this and I'm against that, and there goes your opinion as well. Do you notice that nobody ever changes their opinion and nobody ever fixes the world? But your phone explodes with 20 million notifications because there you go, participated in that conflictive chat, right? Do you tend to think what your group of friends feel or think? So do you see that sometimes that group dynamic, you know, you buy into them too often, and then you bring that home, or you bring home, or you bring from home, you bring it to work? Do you tend to adopt the mood of what others feel or think at work? And this is a terrible time probably to be asking this because with COVID-19, yes, we're all feeling that pressure. I agree. But think about it. Make a pause on that. Do you tend to adopt what others feel or think? And number 8, can you and do you, okay? I'm not asking you if you can only. I know you can, but I'm challenging you to really be honest. Do you catch yourself when engaged in negative thinking? It's very hard to do so, and it's a skill. So if you tend to ask yes to all of this, or the majority of this, what we're actually talking is that perhaps we need to have or maintain or keep better associations. We become the people we hang out with, whether we like it or not. So to a certain extent, it's calling us to actually do a review of who your friends, who your social acquaintances are, If you need to do a cleanup of your Facebook, a clean of your Instagram, do it. What we're talking here about is that actually who you are around can actually have an impact on your well-being. So I want to bring up the point of awareness. Be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of who you're hanging out with, okay? So that you don't adopt that. Also, number 8 is especially challenging, okay? Can you catch yourself? How many times we're saying, I didn't do this well enough, I'm not going to get the promotion, everything is going wrong. So the awareness I'm trying to build out today is to think about your thinking. Can I be aware that I'm engaging in something that is called rumination? When you're just constantly being negative, 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 it's called rumination. You're ruminating, you're over and over beating yourself up that you didn't do something well, you're not going to get a promotion like I said, or maybe I failed to do this, I should have known better. Disengage, because you become your thoughts. And then we tend to have a very grim and dissatisfactory view of the world, okay? Boundaries, we need to have boundaries with difficult people. Boundaries protect you. Boundaries are healthy limits. A boundary sets where you end and the next person or the environment begins. So it is up to you to set healthier boundaries. So when we have positive interactions, when we maintain better associations, and this is a key takeaway, guys, everyone, it leads you to have a better state of mind, better thoughts, we can think more clearly, and better physical health. And these two components lead to a better sense of agency.
We do have a question here. Okay. Laura, do you want to take this? So, Jimmy, I'm going to try successfully, I hope, to unmute you. All right, Jimmy, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing? Well, it's not a question. It's actually following up on Dr. Munoz. We sometimes we focus a little bit too much on the negative stuff. It's like if we lost a dollar, we'll focus all day on, hey, I lost this dollar today, and we never focus on good things that happen to us. And I think that's a natural reaction to our world. So I think we need to find more ways to find a way to focus on the good things that are happening in our lives daily and less focus on the negativity. And back on those chats and stuff like that, if you can bring positivity to that chat, it's more beneficial than keep hopping on the negative. I find that in staff meetings that I lead and groups that I belong, sometimes we stay on that focus. And sure, this if you take coronavirus for a minute, I mean, there's a lot of negativities going on, but you're a mom, right? So imagine that you get to spend maybe more time with your children. Maybe they're not in school, but now you get to home teach them a little bit. So try to find some good in it, because the negativity, all it does is wear you down.
Jimmy, hi. It's so nice to hear from you. Yes, I fully agree with you that we have to focus on the positivity. And many people may ask right now, I want to challenge you. How do you do it? Do you even know how to do it? So sometimes we hear all these things, but we don't know how to do it. So I'm going to share with you how I do it. And this is I learned through talking to a friend who is a therapist and a psychologist. And she noticed that I was, tending to ruminate, tending to engage too much in my negative thinking. So she says, always remember, for every darkness, there's a light. So you always have dark and light. It's your yin and your yang. So force yourself. Every time you say something negative, you have to say something positive to balance it out. So now that is my personal mantra. Let's say I fail at something or something didn't go well for me. And let's say I notice myself saying 2 negative things to me. I force myself, because sometimes it's hard, but I do it. I also tell myself 2 positive things to myself. So that's how I do it, also trying to clear my mind. For every negative, force yourself to say something positive.
And here's a question on that, Laura, that just came through that maybe what you're saying applies. And she was saying, what do you think about not watching the news? Because the news can be so often negative and cause negative actions and panic in people.
I absolutely agree with you. Yes. You have to clean. Remember, we just talked about the environment, right? Control your stimuli. It's okay not to watch the news. It's okay to only watch them if you want in the morning and catch up at the end next day, perhaps. It's part of mental health. It's part of cleaning your perspective. It's okay to maybe you don't want to watch the news, but maybe you want to go to the World Health Organization website. Maybe you want to go for the Center for Disease Control website, the CDC. Those are actually websites run by government and official entities that are actually tracking what's happening. So yes, I agree with you. It's okay not to watch the news. Anything else so far?
Just a comment that
Okay.
that stereotype threat and imposter syndrome kicks in, and the comment was just thank you for the reminder to intentionally disengage with the negative self.
And actually, we're going to be talking about stereotypes here in a second, so hold that thought, okay? Thank you for making that comment. So let's move on after keeping better associations. All right, I think this one, everyone, is pretty obvious, but enlighten me, please, okay? So I practice exercise at least 3 times a week consistently. I take at least one break at work daily where I walk or stand up and stretch. I think we are all guilty of sometimes not doing it to this extent, and I think you're getting the idea that we have to move it. We're talking about the healthy, the beauty, all the benefits of exercise, all right? When we practice exercise, it actually has so many benefits to us beyond obviously not gaining weight or being able to do a flight of stairs. Or if we go back with my opening of Shakira and J-Lo, right? There were so many tweets on social media that, oh my gosh, they are 42 and 50 years old, and here I am being 37, and I can't do what they did, right? So anyway, so we're talking about the sense of agency, and through research, we've actually found that when we exercise consistently, we gain a greater self-control, and it allows us to develop this skill that is called actually delayed gratification. So delayed gratification teaches us that we value more our goals that are in the long term, the things that we really want, rather than, as the name says, gratifying myself instantly in the now. So it's very hard. So the classical example, I want to lose weight eventually, so I have to sacrifice not eating a cupcake today so that my long term is to lose weight or stay healthy, just to give you an example, okay? And it is that delayed gratification that comes through exercise that builds on your sense of agency. You feel more in control. You don't feel like you're reacting. You don't feel that you are just being taken around, being like if we use the analogy of an ocean hitting you with their waves and you are a boat, that you are just not there just moving around. You are actually in control of yourself. So don't feel stuck, or when you feel stuck, when you're stressed at home or at work, what I do is I get up and sometimes I just go and do a walk around my building and then I come back up. Move yourself, try to work standing up, anything that works for all of you, please. All right, so that's the exercise part. Let's move on to the next one. All right, on this one we're going to spend a little bit more time, all right? So follow me along, please. I read 4 or more articles to expand my knowledge in any area per month. I tend to be a collaborator in meetings or group projects at work. I tend to be a teacher in meetings or group projects at work. I read at least 2 books yearly about issues, ideas, skills I need to learn more about. So how many of you said yes to questions 11, 12, and 14? All right? So if you're reading, if you're constantly learning, you are letting me know, and yourself as well, that you continue to be a student. And that is a very, very healthy mindset. When we with humbleness, accept that we don't know it all, and we remain humble, as I said, and open to the fact that we can continue to learn and that we are a work in progress, that actually leads you to have a growth mindset. By the way, there is this great author named Adam Grant. He is from Penn State, I believe. So Adam Grant has published about this several books about your growth mindset and how to promote that in your family or in your work and what it takes to have more of a growth mindset. But essentially, my statements here reflect also what a growth mindset is, okay? That we want you to continue to learn and accept that we're a work in progress. So continue to stay curious. Also, avoid making quick judgments. Avoid judging, whether it's a situation or whether it's a person. one of the things that I do in my professional sales training is I train people to always ask a question first. It is human nature to judge. We are wired to judge. That is fine, and we're not going to go against human nature. But before you communicate such judgment, always ask at least a question. So somebody says something that you don't agree with. You may ask, well, where does that come from? What makes you say that? Well, give me an example of how you see that happening. Then that puts you in a better perspective to understand where the person is coming from, and your judgment, if you think about it, is going to be better informed. You may even change your perspective. Now, number 13 has an asterisk. That one is what we call in research reverse coded. So this one is the opposite. So if in this one you said yes, you are actually not continuing to be a student. Why is that? Because if you're always acting as a teacher, you're coming from a place of authority, yes, but you're also kind of, in a way, putting a barrier between yourself and the others, because it's not a mutual exchange of information. You are being the teacher, so it's you are sending the information to them. You're not being open or receptive to listen to questions, so you don't want to be always the teacher. So, for example, when I start teaching at my university, I always tell my students, I am happy to have you in my classroom, and I look forward to learning with you this semester. I always say I'm going to learn with them. And yes, I continue to learn new perspectives as people ask me questions, or as I'm training people in sales or in negotiations or in digital marketing, which I also teach. I continue to learn, and I learn perspectives that perhaps I hadn't heard before. So I want to encourage you to stay curious, ask questions, and continue, as I said, continue to be a student.
And on that, we have a question asking just how you do continue learning, and what are some platforms that might help you to continue learning different skills?
Well, definitely, obviously, one is you want to continue to log into the webinars from Prospanica, right? And you want to come to our Vegas conference. Notice how I said our Vegas conference, because I definitely feel part of the Prospanica family. So you also want to, for example, it depends on your area. So I will encourage you to Google, for example, top 5 blogs of your industry, or top 5 blogs for if you're a web designer or if you're in HR, and subscribe to those blogs. On LinkedIn, follow hashtags that have to do with, for example, if you're interested in professional topics or you want to grow personally, follow certain hashtags that you know, some concepts that you're interested in doing. Follow books from authors that you know are very prominent in your industry. And I have to admit, for example, as I have grown a great deal on psychology, in the beginning, I didn't know who to follow. And little by little, as I started reading, I read reviews on Amazon, I see what people have published. So I, little by little, continue to, learn more as I expand myself. And I have to admit, I also don't limit myself to only one delivery. So I still buy physical books, and I also download them on Audible. So sometimes when I don't feel like listening to music, if I don't feel like giving a concert in my car, I don't feel like singing, I actually put in a book and I listen to it. And, you just have to get creative to find the time.
And the audience actually had some suggestions.
Oh, please do.
Well, as anyone who has children probably knows, YouTube is a great place to go to learn. Other suggestions are masterclass.com, book clubs, like you just mentioned, and even continuing to learn more about the ideas behind the growth mindset in general. So the author you mentioned, as well as I know Carol Dweck is another writer who's writing about that a lot.
Okay, yeah, very good. Thank you, everyone. And yes, I think the sky is the limit on start Googling, start following people. The matter here is continue to be a student and stay curious, all right? Thank you for such great suggestions, everyone. All right, let's move forward. The next one, this one is a little lengthy, so let's go. 15, you often recognize negative feelings such as anger, worry, sadness, being judgmental, and stop to think about their implications. Notice how I'm not asking you if you have those. We all have them. But did you stop and think about your thinking? You have caught yourself thinking, I will never be fully accepted anywhere. No one will want to date, marry me, befriend me. I will never be promoted. And analyze such thinking. You have dwelled on being mad at someone more than a few times. You usually stop to think whether sometimes your expectations need adjustment. Why are you feeling in such a way? Or if you are putting too much pressure on yourself. And last but not least, I practice at least one awareness or relaxation technique in my life for emotions or thoughts. All right, so if you answer yes to the majority of these ones, with the exception of number 18, 18 is reverse coded, we're actually talking that there's a need for you to stop to recognize emotions and thoughts. So let's talk about this for a little bit. We are all hardwired, it's our human nature to have both emotions and thoughts, heart and mind. Some of us are very emotional and we wear our emotions on our sleeves. Those are our feelers, and you can identify them because they talk usually using the word feel. I feel this way, or they say I'm mad, I'm happy. So you identify them like that. And this actually comes from my sales training, because in sales, we have to adapt our language and adapt the way we talk based on the type of person we're talking to. So I self-train myself to always identify if I'm talking to a feeler or if I'm talking to a rational person, a thinker, a brain person. My brain person is very analytical. My brain person wants numbers, and they usually speak using I think, I see, this is my assessment. So these two people, regardless whether they're using mind or you use heart, you have to stop and recognize that your emotions and your thoughts do run wild in our body. People tend to think that it's bad to feel an emotion. It's bad that you feel angry. You shouldn't feel angry. You shouldn't feel mad. You shouldn't feel sad or scared. But actually, no, emotions it's a very healthy way that we receive to actually regulate ourselves. So you will always have emotions. What matters is that you don't act on your emotions. What matters is that you control your behavior. So for example, if we're raising our kids to be more emotionally aware and have emotional intelligence, one thing that I promote teaching my kids, I tell him it is okay to be angry, but we need to calm down. And once we calm down, we can think what to do about it. So I'm not putting shame on the emotion. Don't put shame on what you feel. Don't put shame on what you think. It is your behavior that you do need to worry about, that we need to focus on regulating, please. So I'm calling for awareness of your emotions and thinking how they have an impact on your behavior. So stop to question your thoughts, stop to question your thinking, think about your thinking. When you notice yourself, you're being too negative, step out of it and say, wait a second, why am I thinking all these negative things? What's going on here? Am I losing perspective? Do I need to actually regain perspective? And this is when, for example, having somebody you trust, a close friend, can help, because they can tell you, yes, you're being too negative, you're forgetting to see all the positive things in your life, or maybe they can help you and bring a different perspective on the situation. And I certainly want to encourage you to practice one awareness or relaxation technique. So for example, here's one that I learned. If somebody has a question?
We do, a great
question.
Okay,
yes, please go ahead, I'll pause.
How can someone improve in self-awareness?
Okay, here we go. Okay, so to improve self-awareness, this is my first technique. This is the one I use personally, okay? So I get frustrated sometimes, like I'm sure all of us do, hopefully. And, the world is difficult for me sometimes. So to gain an awareness, I realized that I started thinking about something and I am working myself up. And your body will tell you you're getting worked up. So listen to your physical reactions. Notice how you're getting stressed, so you start clenching your jaw, or maybe your fist or your hands are getting tension. My left shoulder sometimes hurts. Your stomach hurts. Notice your physical changes. Be attuned to your body. That's why we also don't want to have that much stimuli around us, so you can listen to your body and catch yourself. Wait, what's going on? I'm getting worked up. So once you listen to your body, you're listening or noticing that you're ruminating, right? Stop. And acknowledge that you have these emotions. One way that I recommend, for example, that actually brings both awareness and relaxation, is actually try to sit down and close your eyes or don't close them and picture that you're sitting in a chair in a room. And there's two doors, on the left and on the right side. And anything that comes through your mind, whether it's a thought or a feel, you're going to see it walk in front of you, and you're going to start labeling them. Okay, that's mad. If you say, oh, that person, I can't believe she said that to me. Okay, that's a thought. That's an emotion. Oh, I feel so mad. And you see the word mad. For example, I picture the word mad in front of me. So I label them. So that's what that does when you see it and you see your thoughts or emotions pass in front of you. It allows you to actually name what's going on with you. Give it a name so you can gain perspective, and you're separating yourself. Okay, this is what's going on. I'm got worked up. I'm mad at this situation because I had no control on what that person did. And it is true. You have to accept you have no control over anyone's behavior but yourself. So once I label them, I realize I'm in a state of mind that I shouldn't be making decisions because I'm mad, perhaps. So I saw what happened. I saw them happening, and then I can relax because I know what I'm going through. I've given it a name, and that relaxes me because now I know I need to let a few minutes pass because I need to calm down. Another technique that you can do if you have trouble, for example, having empathy or sympathy, and real quick, the difference between empathy and sympathy is that empathy means you haven't lived what the other person has lived. So, but you acknowledge that for the other person, that's their reality. So if, for example, if let's say I've never had a dog and somebody comes and tells me my dog died, well, maybe I don't feel anything, but I can show empathy saying, that has never happened to me, but I can see how that for you it's very difficult, and I am sorry that it's such a difficult time for you. I'm acknowledging that whatever issue, it's difficult for the other person, and I'm honoring it. I'm honoring their reality. You can use sympathy when you have actually, and here's the key word, you share that experience. You have lived it. So empathy is when you haven't lived it. Sympathy is because you share that experience. So yeah, of course I've had a dog. My girl of 10 years died last year, and my heart was broken for about a month. So when I shared that to my friend, she had sympathy because she had shared that life, and she said, I know what you're going through. So when you don't have empathy or sympathy and you cannot relate to your coworkers or you cannot relate to people, one exercise that you can do as well is picture yourself, it's pitch black, it's dark night, and you're standing next to a cliff. Think how you feel. You don't want to move, and let's put it like you are also wearing a blind. You're blinded, right? You're wearing something covering your eyes. And then picture the person or the group of people that you cannot relate to. Put them there next to you, but they're also blind, and they're moving. They're walking around that cliff. Think how they must be feeling. Think the fear, or think what they must be going through. And then you can start to actually develop some empathy because you're understanding, you're putting yourself in their shoes. Put the problem that it is about and put yourself on them. If we were in a cliff and that problem is a cliff, or that problem is their perspective, how will I feel? And then hopefully that helps you to gain awareness and empathy as well.
We do have a question. I want to make sure we're not getting too far off of your plan, but
That's okay.
here is a question I think cuts right to the heart of this idea of using your agency within the workplace.
Yes.
And how do you bring awareness to your superiors when that person doesn't practice empathy or sympathy?
Okay. So that person doesn't practice awareness or sympathy. And we're going to practice this more in detail in the second half of the webinar, definitely, how we use our words to empower our voice, empower our tone. But definitely what you want to do then is use sentences that bring out the reality. Bring something like, the team sees that as this and this and that. So label it, put it in front of the person, and then ask them, for example, what should we do about it? How should we move forward? So this comes from the social awareness of the emotional intelligence practicum or perception. Call it out. Say it. Don't pretend it's there. Don't assume the other person. Obviously, in your example, the person does not want to see it. So call it out. Use your words. And we're going to hear review in a second how to do that. So just hold that thought, please. All right. So let's move on now to the next one. Do you always or most of the time go with your intuition? When I am on Tinder or in a very animated social gatherings, right, I go with quick impressions. If I am in a job interview, in either role, whether I'm interviewing or I'm being interviewed, I trust my gut often and I stick with it, right? That's why I have a gut. That's why my gut feeling is telling me to do. And in situations where my emotions are running high and I have few social cues, I tend to check with others. Right? I talk to others. Okay, so what's going on here? If you said yes to the first three, I want you to stop, please, and check your intuition. And you might be like, whoa, wait, what? You're telling me not to trust my intuition? Well, actually, to a certain extent, yes. I'm telling you to double check your intuition. I'm not telling you not to follow it, all right? So if we go with what is truly intuition, you gain it or you feel it because it's a deep inner knowledge that you gain from millions of data points, from millions of interactions. So think of it this way. You have observed interactions, you have read about it, you have talked to people, you have observed situations, and you accumulate that knowledge deep, deep, deep down in you. And you know you have it. Maybe you don't remember how you got it, but that's that deep inner knowledge. That's your intuition. The problem with not checking your intuition is that then sometimes we can actually engage in biases or engage in prejudice, be prejudicious. So we want to be careful. A bias is a disproportionate weight into ideas or things that, in an unfair way of ideas or things. And that's when we bring our biases, okay? So we're thinking too much about, for example, a bad bias is to assume that everybody should think like you do. Well, that's unfair, and it's a disproportionate weight. Not everyone is going to agree on your thoughts. And then also prejudice, it's an opinion that is not based on reason or experience. It's just how you see the world, but that can be prejudice, right? It's an opinion that is not based on any facts, on any reason, right? On any logic. So I want you to pause, okay? And I want you to think, my intuition can be good, but I need to double check, okay? I need to make sure that I don't go with quick impressions. So maybe the person, like if you're in a very animated social gathering, maybe the person didn't have time to go change. Maybe the person, for example, let me share a social gathering that I went to. I went in somebody's house, and it was this guy who not only was he not being social, he was standing in a corner, he was wearing a hat, and he was wearing dark glasses, sunglasses, in the house. So obviously everybody started to think, oh my gosh, what a rude guy, antisocial, he's not being polite, and then he's wearing dark sunglasses, so he must be thinking that he's better than all of us, right? Do you know what it was? He was so shy, and he felt that he was not going to be accepted, that he just stood in a corner, and those were his barriers of protection. It was kind of, I don't want to say sad, but it was a quick awakening to check your intuition. You might be wrong sometimes. So while I'm telling you trust your gut to a certain extent, you can also make sure that you check with others to balance things out. All right. So let's move on from that one. So as we're checking our intuition, let me ask you, you tend to procrastinate at work. Are you one of those? You tend to procrastinate in your personal life. You usually make decisions at your happiest and more liveliest moments. If asked, you always know what you're trying to achieve eventually at work or personal life. You know where you're headed. When things are not working out for you, you tend to take responsibility for it. All right, so if you answer yes to the first three, okay, I want you to pause, think, and act. I want you to please stop to actually give some thought. Allow for your emotions that were maybe running wild because you were either so happy or you were so sad that you did not pause to think on the consequences. So this is, for example, let's say somebody's running short on money and he or she is so happy because they just got something that they go ahead and buy lunch for the entire office. Or they say, drinks are on me. But the person cannot really afford it. So you make a decision on a high when maybe you should have said, let's go out for drinks, but everybody, pays for their own. Or when you're the happiest or the saddest, I'm sorry, I'm never going to get promoted. Nobody ever is going to give me a better job. So I'm just not going to even bother attending next month's virtual career fair. I'm not, because there's not going to be nothing for me. I'm not going to even bother to check what Prospanica did for me. No, Pause, think, and act, okay? I want you to, again, gain an awareness that taking action, people that have high agency and stop to think and let those emotions and thoughts come down, you see it from the outside perspective, as I've been teaching you today. We don't have to act with 100% certainty. You're never going to have all the information. But you can tell yourself that it's enough to have perhaps about 80% of information and remind yourself that you're truly doing your best with whatever information you have. You stop to consider everybody's perspective, right? And that's one of the things that I focus on teaching. For example, as we're teaching sales or as I'm teaching marketing, it's not only about what you want to sell, it's also taking into consideration what your client wants to buy, what your client's boss needs, what the VP of finance needs or is willing to approve, what the user is going to say. So we have to take everyone's perspective and pause, think, and act. The greater you do this, the greater sense of agency, you're going to feel like you're in control of your life and reduce anxiety and reduce that feel of being pulled away in 20 million directions, all right? Do we have any questions so far? Are we doing good? All right, everyone. So now that we've paused to think and act, I want you to make a personal commitment to yourself. Down there, as you can see, I've listed all the things that I've taught you today to develop agency. We've talked about controlling stimuli, keep better associations, move it, continue to be a student, stop to recognize emotions and thoughts, check your intuition, and pause to think and act. So I want you to go ahead and list 3 to 5 changes that you're committing yourself today to start implementing to develop a stronger personal agency in your life. So go ahead, take a minute, and we would love to hear from you. So if you could please share some of them on the chat so we can comment, we would love that. Well, hi, everyone. So as you start to share, so somebody has mentioned that they want to control stimuli. So ways to control stimuli, remember, try not to go eat always to the same cafeteria. Maybe you want to go eat somewhere where it's more quiet. Maybe once a week you eat by yourself, not necessarily in your desk, but maybe you find, outside your building a corner where you can be by yourself and just relax. And try not to be on your phone because you're also not relaxing and you're not paying attention to what you're eating. So just put it away. Just watch people watch. People watch can be a great sport. So that's how, and again, put your timer. Our phones are great machines, but remember, they don't rule our lives. They're supposed to help us with our lives. So maybe by after 9 o'clock, you put a limit where no more text messages, nothing comes through.
And on that, someone said they want to be more focused with less interruptions. Put the phone in the drawer.
Yes, put the phone in the drawer, turn it upside down, limit your social media. So I have a friend who goes on detox of Facebook. So she deletes the app for a week. And she does not, she detox. And she lets everybody know, okay, everyone, I'm going to go on my detox, 1 week, no Facebook. And she does it.
Yeah, another person said minimize the arguments on social media.
Yes, and also change the way you write. So one thing that I do, for example, I'm on groups of moms, and I'm also on groups of personal sales and all that. So one thing that I've noticed is that if you give your opinion, no, you're not going to change anyone's mind. But what you can do very humbly and very kindly say, I think that, perhaps this should be considered, or perhaps you could think about that, and give perspective. Do not impose. If you have to participate, do not impose, share, and then try to do it in a very kind way, no name calling. And also, if you're not going to change the world, and this is kind of also like pick your battles, don't engage.
There's been some really interesting things too about social media, but going back a step, someone mentioned wanting to check their intuition, to exercise, and to try to focus on the positive.
Yes, definitely.
Someone said also their children actually delete the social media app periodically to eliminate that tendency to want to peek all the time.
Yes, absolutely. I know families who, well, my child is too little. He's only 6, so he doesn't have a phone yet. But for example, he loves YouTube. He's only allowed to watch YouTube Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's it. That's all he gets of YouTube. So he has to wait the whole week. So it also, I think, gives us a momentum to really value it more and appreciate it more.
And here's an interesting suggestion for someone who, just the workplace. And he says he manages a team of experts. Yes. So he usually goes in with the learner's mindset, and he thinks he can do a better job but he thinks he can do a better job still of being proactive at learning about their craft.
I absolutely agree with you. And it also puts you, I think, in a safer position because it takes pressure away from you to saying that you're an expert as well. So if you say, I want to learn, and you put yourself from a humble perspective, I think you're also protected because you're allowing yourself you allow yourself to know that you're going to make mistakes.
Someone here talking about in group conflict on projects, learning to keep better associations, to stop and recognize her emotions and thoughts, to pause, think, then act.
Absolutely, and that's a challenge. I agree, because sometimes we're in the moment and everybody's pitching their opinion, and that's when maybe if you are the leader of that meeting or the leader of that team, you can say, everyone, we're getting off topic. Why don't we take 5 minutes to cool off? Or why don't we take a minute to really consider everyone's perspective?
And there's a lot of comments here about Facebook and social media, obviously, with the news around the pandemic, with the election cycle going on. There's a lot of noise. Yeah. A great suggestion was to just not check for the first half hour in the morning, just to remain focused about what you have to do during the day.
Okay, so for example, what I do is I practice gratitude, and when I wake up in the morning, and sometimes when I'm alone, I make it every morning. And it doesn't have to be always at the same time, but I just force myself to at least say 5 things for which I'm grateful for. So about a few years ago, I lived a personal experience that was very life-changing for me in a very negative side, and that really kind of set me aback. But I overcame that experience. My family and I overcame that experience, and it taught me that to really appreciate and love more what I have. So I practice gratitude. So every morning I list at least 3 or 5 things for which I'm thankful. And also when we go to bed, me and my child, I ask my kid, he has to say 3 things that he's thankful for. Sometimes he's thankful for our dogs. Sometimes he's thankful for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And sometimes he's thankful for mom and dad. And just practicing gratitude.
Excellent. Another one said just to reassess how your emotions might be perceived.
Oh, absolutely, because it's okay if people know that you're mad. That's okay. What matters is that you don't behave and you don't engage. And actually, I think people will gain more respect if you actually acknowledge, I think at this moment, I'm gonna go and think about it. I'm gonna sleep on it. Or, let me get back with you. And remove yourself from the situation. I have done it. I've removed myself from a situation. All right? So with that thought, thank you so much for sharing. Bottom line, I want you to remember that agency empowers you to find your emotional and physical balance, to think more clearly, and to advocate for yourself so you can become the hero of your own life. All right? So always remember that. Anyways, let's move on now to the second part of our webinar. So now we're going to talk about actually how to exercise and use that voice, right? That now is aided by agency that we just learned. A couple of things about your voice. Sometimes we need to adjust our expectations. You might be expecting too much of people or expecting that people can read off your mind, right? So revise those. Should I ask questions? Let me double check we're on the same page. Also remember, you can only control your behavior. You cannot control what others do. You can get mad about it. You can get sad. You can get disappointed. But you can't do anything about it. And if it helps, say the serenity prayer, right? The one that you ask, give me wisdom to know the difference, and serenity to know when I can be I can be brave and change things that I have, and give me serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, right? So remember that. And strive for mutual respect and cooperation in your exchanges. How often when we get offended, we say, no, you need to respect me. You disrespected me. You are actually not cooperating. All right. So let me let you in a little secret. Anger is an emotion that has a very keen attitude, a very keen characteristic. Anger makes you feel righteous. It puts those righteous glasses on you. So it's the world against you, and you are right. You know why? Because you're mad. So don't say anything when you're mad. Try not to. Buy yourself some time. Take away yourself. Because then you can change your language and say, just as you need to respect me, I need to respect you as well. All right? So before we start exercising that voice, let me do a little fine tuning, okay? And that's why I use my guitar there. It's going to put some music into your ears. First thing, I want you from now on to substitute you statements for I statements. So instead of saying, Evan, you were so rude, you arrived late, you did not even offer me water, which of course he did not, guys. Evan is an excellent host, and he's blushing, so I apologize for that.
Thank God the webcam is off.
I know, right? No, so it's, Evan, I feel that I could have been treated better. I feel that I arrived timely, and I was not offered water. So notice what is that doing? When I start speaking for I, under I, it's my reality, it's my perspective. You're also not making that the other person becomes defensive or so defensive, right? Because you're taking your responsibility and you're just simply stating, these are the things that did not work for me. So try to use more I statements, especially when you have to communicate difficult choices or when you have to communicate things that you're dissatisfied with. Substitute judgmental statements for behavior statements. What does that mean? Don't tell people that they're a bad person or bad mom or, don't insult people. Don't insult the nature of the person. No one is 100% good or 100% bad. We all have light and dark. But if you call out the behavior, such as when we see you're arriving tired, when you're constantly late, so see the behavior, when you're constantly late, it makes everyone else be late as well, and you delay their work. Right? So notice how I didn't say, you're a poor worker, we can't trust you. No, the behavior. Also, when you speak to someone, add concrete results or consequences, especially if you're giving feedback. So don't tell me, that was okay, that was well done. Tell me, 10 out of 10. Okay, now I can measure that. Or you know what? That was excellent. You named the issue on point, you follow through, and you make sure that, everything was delivered on time. You're being very concrete. Watch your tone, especially with written communications. And I'm guilty of this one, okay? I sent an email 2 weeks ago and someone didn't like my tone and I had to go and apologize. It was not intentional, and that was the first thing that I said. I am so sorry that it was taken out of context. That is not what I meant. So watch your tone. So what I'm saying here is, especially when delivering difficult news, perhaps add more background, add more sentences that truly explain where you're coming from, okay? Ask questions first. When you don't ask, you assume, right? And you know what goes after that. So let's not do that. So ask questions. Tell me more about that. Well, where is that coming from? Well, how do you see that? Well, wait a second. I was not aware of that. Can you tell me where is that coming from, or what makes you say that? Ask questions so then you can see. Nobody's saying you're not going to have a judgment. We're all judgmental. It's part of human nature. But it may revise that judgment before you communicate it, and you communicate it in a way that maybe it was not accurate. And do not use conflictive language, okay? These ones can get you in trouble, all right? When you tell someone, especially when you cannot control the tone or you cannot read the tone in an email, and you say, thank you for your concern. You know how the other person is reading it? Like, you don't care. Leave me alone. So be careful with, I would appreciate it if you, blah, 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 blah. Oh, that can be taken in so many ways. Or do not do generalizations, okay? Do not generalize. You cannot say everybody or all of you. Because the first thing I will do as a sales trainer, I will say, well, wait a second. Who is everybody? Can you name who is everybody? Who have you talked to? Who is all of you? I will challenge that. Okay, so that's your fine tuning. So what I do now is, let's practice how would you reply to someone. Now, because we're running a little short on time, instead of 20 minutes, I'm going to give you about 10 minutes, and try to work in as many sentences as you can individually. So what I want you to do is please read all these sentences and rewrite them. Using the fine-tuned examples that I just gave you, rewrite how would you say this to actually make sure that you have more agency and you can express your voice while maintaining the relationship. Let's go ahead, please. Yes, everyone, if you missed the instructions, I ask you to please rewrite these sentences. How would you communicate these sentences, what you have to say, in a way that you're showing agency and using the fine-tuned examples that I just gave you. So please rewrite these statements, how they could be said in a better way. Everyone, if you have started to rewrite some of those, we would love if you can please start typing how you rewrote some of them, and tell us just what number is it, and type them on our chat so we can comment and give you feedback. Of course, I'm going to show you how I will have said things, definitely, and you have it in your sheet, so don't look at the answer. But please start resharing and start typing so that we can give you feedback as well. All right, everyone, we're back, and let's see how we did. All right. So let's start with the first one, or I'm going to show you how I will have said it, and then we're going to revise what you have been sending so far. Okay. So the first one is a staff member keeps complaining about other staff members, Hispanics, immigrants, but won't bring such concerns directly to you. So the problem with this one is that you keep hearing about it that other people are telling you, but you haven't heard on it so far, right? So notice how, again, we're going to use I language, I first, so we don't put the person defensive. We're going to focus on the behavior, okay? And we're going to go with something along the lines of, I noticed you become used to bring your concerns about work to others rather than to me. I have the ability to try to fix your concerns or share things with you that might change your perspective. Going forward, I want to ask you to go to the person who has the ability to do something, usually me, rather than venting to others who can't act on it, right? So if they keep complaining about something at work, again, and if you are the manager, then notice how you're doing, I notice that you're doing this, right? And then you bring the perspective, I am the one who can fix it for you. And then notice how you move it forward. You don't stay stuck in the past, right? So going forward, I want you to please come to the person who might help you. In this case, it's going to be me. If it's with human resources, go with human resources. But then again, notice how you made a clean break as to going forward. Does anyone have a comment on that one so far?
Yeah, there's one that not exactly that one. Here's one that okay. Might work. So I've noticed that you have complaints about other staff members and share those with staff who can't do anything about them. As your manager, I'm in a position where I may be able to help you. I would like you to bring those concerns directly to me going forward. Let's see if there's something we can do about them.
Excellent, excellent. That is perfect. Yes, I language. Notice how you're calling out the behavior, and then moving forward, you're also being very clear and leaving no ambiguity on what's going to happen. Excellent example. Thank you so much to whoever shared that. Okay, the next one. Team member won't take no for an answer, all right? Kind of like a kiss, right? No is no. All right, so this is how you could say. This has come up several times now. I understand that you insert the issue, right? Whatever they want. However, we are, and then you state the reason why you can't say yes. And I do not foresee this changing. I hope you can accept this and that we can move on because we cannot continue to revisit this. And that moment you pause and let silence be your friend. We also have a hard time with silence, okay? And that's also that I teach heavily on sales. You need to be comfortable with silence. The person needs to process. The person needs to think about it a few seconds. That yes, for you it might feel an eternity, but I promise you it's just seconds. And then let them answer, okay? Respect silence. Now, let's just say the person does it again, right? And then, again, the person cannot take no. I added that, and if the person keeps insisting, you can say something along the lines. Knowing the answer is no, and that we can keep revisiting this, what makes sense from here? Put it back on them. Notice how you are telling them, I've already told you no. Obviously, the person is not listening to you as the manager. They keep asking or doing whatever they want. So put it back on them. What makes sense from here? Right? If it's an issue that needs to be elevated to an HR level, then you may go to that route because that person has truly exhausted all the options, all right?
On that, another person suggested another statement that kind of is in line with that is, I still want to know your point of view on that.
Well, it's and you might already know the point of view, right? Because hopefully at that point you've already asked, well, why you keep asking? You understand where the person is coming from, right? So if the person has been asking for something, well, if we are proactive or active managers, I agree with that person. We want to know why. What you could ask is perhaps, has something changed as to the reasoning why you keep asking for this? Has something changed in your life or from your perspective, right? And then again, there's nothing can be done. What makes sense now? What makes sense from now on?
Another suggestion on this one is, another reworking of it is, I appreciate your persistence on this, but it is a topic I'm unable to budge on at this time.
Yeah, exactly. And then again, put it on them. Then how do we move forward? Very good. Thank you so much for that participation. The next one, as a manager, you need to communicate a decision you do not agree with, right? So there's something a decision was taken above your pay cut, right? And you just have to communicate it to the team. So what I have to tell you is a decision that I would not have made. I know several or competing factors were considered, and ours were not the only interest in play. And then you go ahead and communicate the decision, right? You just have to put it in perspective, and this again kind of comes from emotional intelligence, giving people background. When you explain, I know many people think that, well, if I'm a manager, if I'm in a leadership position, I don't have to explain. Actually, it's the opposite. Emotional intelligence teaches us that when you explain people where you're coming from, when you take the time to acknowledge and share the past and why we're taking that path, you get greater buy-in, all right? People can feel empathy, they understand you, and you may even get greater buy-in, and I just said. So tell them, perhaps in this case you don't agree with that, or there were competing factors, and we have to accept it. Do we have any comments on that?
I don't think we have any for that one.
All right. So let's move to the next one. An employee has a bad attitude, right? So for example, towards working in a team, I don't like my team members, or a person is constantly rolling his or her eyes, right? We all seen that in meetings. So this is what you could do. And I would recommend doing this in a private, okay? Do not do this in public because then you go into shaming and people get defensive. So in a controlled environment, bring them to your office or go visit them in their office and say something along the lines of, when you say you do not want to work with others, or when you roll your eyes, people think you do not want to be here, and it shuts down collegiality. What is going on? Notice how I ask a question, right? I stated the behavior, I stated what's happening, the consequences of the behavior, and I asked a question. Once you hear the answer, or another way of saying it is, I have noticed you're expressing a lot of things that annoy you. While we all can get frustrated from time to time, it's important to do it respectfully. I have noticed it is getting harder for you to keep a positive or compassionate attitude. Does that resonate with you, with what you're experiencing? And then the person can tell you, and then you can also ask, well, what do we do to move forward? How can we make sure that we can help you to make it not harder for you? How can we help you to actually try to have a more positive attitude? Notice how I did not call the person any names. Notice how I did not tell the person you were bad or good. I didn't label the person. I focused on the behavior. And I'm involving them in the decision. And I'm asking them to work with me on finding a solution rather than imposing. Next, you lost it and you yell or snap at someone. Worst case scenario, right? Okay. I want to apologize for yelling yesterday. I was concerned with, tell the reason. However, that is not an excuse to yell at you or yelling at you. I respect you and your work, and I am sorry for my behavior. And that's it. Then respect the silence. Notice how you do apologetic. You say, I'm sorry, and you're not making excuses. When we start making excuses for an apology, the apology loses its value. If you're going to genuinely say, I'm sorry, you say, you know what, you're right, I'm sorry. Next one, you heard someone say a sexist, racist, or anti-religious comment. All right, so I wrote them from several perspectives, some that are maybe not so serious to kind of take the edge of it, and then they get more serious or more proper as we read along, all right? So the first one, hey, those comments are not okay here. You nip it in the bud. Or you can say, those comments are not acceptable here and are against company policy, right? Or, we're all humans and value everyone here. I hope you didn't really mean that, depending on how good a relationship you have. And last but not least, I do not know if you meant to say it this way, but that term is actually considered problematic because, and tell them why their term is problematic, right? So you go into the full consequences of that behavior of those words. And last but not least, certainly you heard someone say sexist, racist, or anti-religious comments, but you couldn't address them in the moment, right? Sometimes some things happen, people are involved, and you certainly want to kind of do the dirty laundry at home, right? You don't want to correct somebody necessarily in front of people, not to make it worse. So you bring them in private, and about that comment that you made about, and you state the term, that kind of comment is not acceptable here. I need you to be respectful to people regardless of their sex, religion, race, sexual orientation, immigrant status. Can you do that going forward? And notice how you are being very clear about, can you do that moving forward, the asking. Because in that way, you gain the agreement of the person that, yes, I will fix my behavior. A variation is to say, I want to be very clear, or I'm going to be very clear that what you said, or that kind of comment, it's not okay here. Or you can also say, earlier you made a comment that makes me uncomfortable, so I want to ask you about it. You said, which I took it to mean, is that what you meant to say? Or did I understand you correctly? So you're giving them an opportunity, also kind of like an out. If that is, let's say it's a comment that is out of nature for the person, this is a way out. Like, is that really what you meant to say? Kind of like, explain to me, please. All right? And that's how you could do it. Do we have any other comments?
We had one for number 6, which
okay.
is, I understand that you meant no harm with this comment. However, it can be offensive to some. We are here as a diverse team, and we strive to work together and be respectful towards each other.
Okay. The issue that I will only have is the first sentence. Can you reread the first sentence? I understand that you meant no harm with this comment. Okay, so that is an assumption that we're making. So if the person has acknowledged, right? If you ask the person, why did you make that comment? Do you realize? And the person says, oh, I did not mean it. Then yes, you can start with that sentence. I understand you did not mean. But you don't know that, so you cannot make those assumptions, okay? I always rather not to assume and ask. That is just a personal preference. I think it puts you in a safer place to do that. Anything else before we
have this one. I would like to understand your point of view on this topic. Can you make me understand your statement?
Okay, they cannot make you. That's problematic language, okay? Make me sounds like you're force me, right? So soften it. So could you help me? Can you please give me examples? Or can you please tell me what you actually meant? Or you can even say, some people say like, pretend I'm a 5-year-old. Can you explain it to me, right? So, but make me, that's forcing, and that is problematic language, all right? Thank you so much for that comment, everyone. So I hope you have found this webinar very interesting, and I hope you feel empowered by the sense of agency in your life, because again, I want us to use our voice. I want us to exercise our agency, because at the end, in a gentle way, you can shake the world, all right? There's no need not to exercise our voice. So So I thank you so much for taking the webinar today, and I look forward to hopefully meeting you in person in a future Prospanica event.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laura, and thank you to everyone who has joined the webinar. We had such wonderful involvement. I want to remind you, we have another webinar coming up at 2 p.m. Central Time today. This will be our second webinar you'll need for the certificate. So make some time or watch the recording if you can't join live. And all of us here in the Prospanica studio will give you a round of applause, Laura.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you very much for joining us.